Hey, I'm getting ready to.
We'll get started without a quorum. Okay. Well, hi, everybody.
See how he's waiting for you.
Let's get the shoes on.
So it's 5 minutes.
Yeah, and he's right up the street. Let's hope.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So.
Boy.
Anyway, we will. We're running just a little bit behind. We're waiting for our quorum, so we're starting late.
No, I might have an attachment keyboard.
Yeah. Use.
Size of its.
Yes. This is an amendment. I know.
I think we all ought to applaud when it comes in.
Yes, that would be great. Standing ovation. No pressure.
See if that works.
Yeah, sure.
Was.
Yeah.
You can ignore it.
No, you can't.
Figure what. It's the right size, I think.
Oh, yeah, sure. Looks like that size.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Yes. Should be in settings, oh, this. Settings app. Bluetooth. There it is.
Yeah, that's-
Bang. It's the closest one. This is mine. Oh, yeah. Wonder if it's.
It's just, maybe I don't have any.
Let's see, let's try this again. think that might have been his Mac. Let's try to connect to it. It's all right.
It's like a church service waiting to begin. We're also quiet.
It's not a few.
What's
It'll
that?
be plenty of
God, thanks.
Yeah.
I will take this one for that. Is this yours or is this is your personal? Okay.
Very unsuccessful.
All right.
What's that mean? There's too many other Bluetooths competing?
Nice try.
Used to work at Apple, come troubleshoot if you want.
Were you a genius?
I was in the FR, I was a family room specialist.
Sure, I can get it, the Bluetooth, yeah, that's right. Easily. Genius bar.
Oh, no, I just,
Thank you, Rick.
dish.
All right, I will call this meeting to order and we'll start with the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could we have roll call, please?
Mayor Smith,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Valentine,
Here.
Trustee Stelter,
Here.
Trustee Brunner,
Here.
Trustee Schwartz, Trustee Chair.
Here.
Thank you. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Move on. So we have announcements and I have two plus a proclamation to read, but if anyone else has an announcement that they'd like to bring up, I'll hold the floor. Looks like it's me. Okay. So the first announcement I wanted to make is for those of you who get a blue bill for your utility, I don't know if you saw the note on there, which is spring has sprung. Please cut back any vegetation that encroaches on the sidewalks by 5/31. And we really want to make a concerted effort for homeowners to keep their sidewalks passable. And that's both vertically and horizontally. I know many of us have had to go in the street because there's rose bushes or raspberries. So please, if you don't ever go out on your sidewalk, go out and make sure you can get through it. And if not, please cut it back. And if there are impassable sidewalks on June 1st, the town will be out there cutting everything back. And they'll be picking up the debris, but it may not be as meticulously cut as you might have wanted to do. So please keep the sidewalks open. And the second announcement I wanted to make is I want to remind everybody there is a tour of the facilities tomorrow. It's set for trustees, but the public's invited. And that's to see the water plant, sewer plant, this building, police, public works, probably that's about it. And the public's invited and arrive at town hall at about 1:50 for taking your own vehicle or carpool. So if you want to join us, I have to tell you, it's pretty amazing to see the water plant, the sewer plant. It really is. So please join us if you can. So my last piece of announcement is a proclamation. And the proclamation is that it's Mental Health Month is May of 2024. Whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas according to Colorado Health Institute, Colorado has the nation's sixth highest suicide rate. And whereas all individuals face challenges in life that can impact their mental health, therefore it is our duty as a community to help reduce stigma in seeking professional help for mental health support. And whereas prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental health conditions, and whereas there are practical tools that all people can use to improve their mental health and increase resiliency. And whereas mental health conditions are real and prevalent in our nation. And whereas with effective treatment, those individuals with mental health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen share the burden of mental health problems and has a responsibility to promote mental wellness and support prevention and treatment efforts. Last, whereas organizations like Tri-County Health Network fight all year, not just in May, to bring mental health awareness to the forefront and offer programs and services to the community to address mental health needs. Therefore, I, Mayor Paige Smith, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Mental Health Month in Paonia, Colorado. As the mayor, I also call upon the citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools in Paonia to commit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental health, the steps our citizens can take to protect their mental health, reducing stigma around seeking help, and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental health conditions. Thank you. So our next agenda item is public comment for anybody who would like to speak on a topic not on tonight's agenda. Please come on up to the podium. You have 3 minutes to speak. And we ask that you sign in, give us your first and last name and just the street where you live, not the house number. So if anybody would like to come up, Ms. Watson.
No, I'm signing my name here, but you do not have my permission to put my name or my address or the street I live in on YouTube. It would be a violation of their privacy policy. So you can look on the sheet if you want to know who I am.
Thank you.
I just want to say I noticed another sign in one of our planters. I thought I saw somewhere tonight you're going to be like there are people who are volunteering to maintain the planters downtown. And it just seems like people are continually disrespect them by sticking signs in them. And the one I saw tonight was the Arbo Farmers Market. You know, they don't know if they're bulbs in those planters or not. They could be stabbing plant material and basically killing it. So it'd be, I don't know how you can get the word out to people, but it's not an appropriate use of the town planter. And it's kind of disrespectful of the people who are putting money into those things and volunteering their time to take care of them. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am, please come up.
Don't start the timer yet, I got a long name.
Thank you for letting us know, that's fair. Oh, gosh, yeah. All right.
During the recent BCI candidate forum, candidates voiced the goal of transparency. The following action plan could increase transparency. Allow communication at meetings to be a dialogue between trustees and citizens instead of an allowed 3-minute one-way speech by a citizen. Accountability is closely related to transparency. There is no accountability when trustees refuse to answer questions from citizens during a meeting or don't engage in a two-way dialogue with a citizen during the meeting. Add a heading to each meeting agenda that is labeled something like a citizen's 15-minute concern. Allow one citizen a 15-minute opportunity to speak on any subject This would be in addition to the 3-minute policy currently on the agenda. If more than one citizen would like to speak at the same meeting, names could be drawn out of a hat so that there is a maximum of only 15 minutes devoted to this at a meeting. Or potential speakers could agree among themselves who would speak that evening. Take down the be nice, be fair, be nice signs, or make them apply to the trustees as well as the citizens. As they are now positioned, they are directed to the line of vision mostly of the citizens. The epitome of rudeness is to tell someone to shut up. I have never heard a citizen tell the trustee to shut up, but the 3-minute timer is a trustee's nonverbal, very effective action that sends a message to the current 3-minute citizen speaker that implies Paonia citizens are stupid in a trustee's way and have nothing really to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else, we'll go on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
On the disbursements, $30K to Respect and $7.9 to SGM for realignment. What are those?
So the SGM bill is for the Fifth and Grand realignment project. So that's the
Okay.
that intersection improvement, and then Respect that bill is specific to our Phase 1 capital water improvement plan that we're doing. So that's when you see realignment, that's realigning the water mains out of private properties into right of ways. So that 8-inch steel line that goes from Lamburn and services literally everyone. So
That's the Respect.
that is Respect, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else have questions on the consent agenda before? Go ahead.
I do have one, and you're going to see this in my report. In front of you is a printout of our budget monthly to actual, and we approved it for this go around. It also includes a printout of our bank accounts, so not the account numbers, but a description of those accounts as well as the interest that they may be receiving, and then those balances as of the date. So it was a request, and I think it does improve the transparency of this report.
Anyone else? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So we will move on to staff reports.
That's it. Oh, yeah, that's me. So give me 1 second while I pull it up. This staff report is a little bit different than what you've seen because I have been going to conferences. So what you'll see is my report based on the trainings that I attended for the Colorado City and County Management Association conference in April. You'll see in June that I'll also provide an education summary for the CCI summit that I just attended for May. This took a significant amount of time, and it's part of my keeping up with my credential manager status with the International City County Management Association. This is a picture from PK8, the play for Peter Rabbit. I'm particular to the mouse right there. That's my daughter. So it was very good, really well attended. You'll see what I did attend a number of courses. The first one was a 6-hour training called the Art of Management. So this was with a collection of managers and consultants from all over the state. Our consultant was actually from, I think, Kansas. Helped with doing like personal professional development, such as like our behavior disc assessment. I've changed since the last time I took one of that behavior type. I was an ENTJ. I'm now an ISTJ. That's an introversion, sensing, thinking, and judging. So that helps to learn that leadership style. I was kind of in the far limits. Most of them are very bowl and china shop folks that took that test.
Is that the Briggs Meyer?
It is, yeah. So I've changed. Fancy that. But during this week, we had a number of sessions that we talked about healthy commitment. So not just that work, not just coming in, being committed to work, but also having that work-life balance, making sure that we're keeping up with our mental health. So Those kinds of things were what came out of that session. That, like I said, that was a 6-hour training. I'm mandated to continue my credential to take 40 hours of continuing training every year. I have that met. I just have to write it down and put it in now after that CCI summit. So the Spirit of Colorado was a peaks, pivots, and perseverance. The big thing I got out of this was everybody should walk up to music on stage once in their life. I thought that was pretty funny. But really what it talked about was, we're not supposed to complain down as executives, right? It's very lonely at the top. So once something has been done, you're supposed to get your team around you to collaborate and make it happen. And it's okay to laugh. The next general session was leading democratically, fostering management innovation, advancing public trust, and building resilient communities. The speaker for this one is a consultant that helps local governments with ensuring civil rights aren't being violated. Comes from Cincinnati, where there were literal decisions made in neighborhoods to put in like streets and remove really important cultural pieces of that neighborhood without any discussion with that community. And so that's really how she got activated and told us, what we should do and ensuring that we have a diverse audience and being equitable and fair amongst everyone. It was only an hour training, but it was pretty informative. I did attend a training on multiple state agencies for funding opportunities for affordable housing and Proposition 123. It's not just giving developers money, but it could be looking at infrastructure improvements such as roadways, pipes, things like that, and then funding that's available for that. Of course, we have our own things.
What is Prop 123?
Proposition 123 is a state initiative to advance affordable housing. So we have opted into it. We're supposed to have done build like I think it was whatever our minimum number of affordable housing units are within a 4-year period or something like that. And the state knows that we have a water moratorium in place. We can't do anything until we've met the criteria, and we know that we have a water supply that can handle new homes. But that's what it is. It's a statewide initiative. Lots of money. Leadership development on our budget. So City of Thornton put this on, and I'm like, well, your budget is kind of like our entire annual budget just for development, internal development, but it is scalable, so we can bring it down to something that is management here in town. I got some pretty good ideas on how we build a high impact team or keep our high performing team impactful and training. So I thought that was pretty good. It's all about fostering an environment without fear of repercussions for failing. So what do we do if one of my team members were to fail in implementing something? How do we make it so that they can be innovative and not feel like they're gone if they one's false move or fell a bad step, and making sure that they don't fail by doing what I can to prop them up. Cost trends, and this was Sam White, he put this on, cost trends affecting your public entity. It's really, really bad news. But from a strategic planning and budgeting process, it was good to know that our premiums are going to go up next year. And unfortunately, it's PD related, police department related, because of some really, really interesting court decisions from the Front Range that affect the entire pool of insurance, no matter where we're at. And so that's something that we've got to plan for. It was good to hear from Sam about that. And then I got some best practices on what we can do to decrease our liability. I actually spoke with our public works director today. Part of that is, hey, have we done a visual inspection of everywhere a child will be on the playground now that our parks are open? Looking for wasp nests, looking for any sort of pet pests, looking for broken seats, screws missing, things like that, to make sure that we're doing that. We're going to be doing it soon. So that was a good best practice that came out of there. I also participated with the new ICMA ethics director on our code of ethics. I got to participate in really defining our as an organization's new code of ethics. like tenets 8 for professional development and tenet 10, which is job encroachment. The one that we really talked about was tenet 8, that professional development piece, because what I found in our breakout session is that people that go to some of these conferences go for the steak dinner, they go for the golf, and they don't actually attend these trainings, but then they put it in their, they're attesting that they have done that. And so that's an issue. So I pulled out of that it renewed, the conversations made me renew my commitment to personal professional development and work towards tailoring a better education plan for myself. Because I had to write all of this, and it was like, I couldn't imagine somebody who didn't attend a session to not be able to write something that, the last time I had to do this re-credential, it goes to the Public Affairs, Masters of Public Administration Director at University of Southern California. And that professor, that doctor, returned mine last time 4 times. He said it wasn't good enough and I had to keep rewriting it. So this time I wanted to make sure it's not going to get kicked back because I called him Dr. Jerk. I know this is recorded.
What tenant is that?
It's professional development is one. Then the next one I attended was building a positive organizational culture. And this was led by the city manager of, what was it? Lakewood, Sean Lewis, or Inglewood. And their program was really incredible. How they elicited feedback from staff members, where they could see that they could improve. And it was a really good session. I learned a lot from that one on what we can do to improve our staff's commitment to excellence, and just their program was incredible, built from the ground up. So they had a really toxic work environment pre-COVID. Sean Lewis came in. It was the place they couldn't fill positions. Nobody wanted to be there. The people that were there said, "I'm here for the money and the benefits." That's a really bad organizational culture, and they fixed it to where now it's shifted where, yes, money and benefits are great, but now I come for my team, I come for the organization is now higher up on that list. Really interesting to see what they've done. My favorite one that I attended was Navigating Rough Waters. This was from one of our ICMA senior advisors, who's a retired, he went to the dark side. He was a city and county administrator for many years, and now he's an elected official in his hometown, so he went to the dark side. But he, really, he gave us a really good direction of what we can do for controversial topics at meetings, how to break down tribes and realize that we as a community are one tribe and not multiple tribes against each other. It was a really good takeaway, and he was pretty good. My favorite was, he said, how does it grow corn? And that's a Navajo Nation saying for measuring activities against standards. So it was, you could go through all of this stuff, and he said, how do you grow corn? Or how does it grow corn? Does it grow corn? Meaning, doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so very, very good. The last one was land use planning by ballot box. My takeaway from that is it's not a good idea. But there are some instances where maybe a referendum vote needed to happen. It did present some issues for different communities. One of them being where staff was saying, hey, you probably shouldn't do this. The public was saying, hey, you shouldn't do this. And then the board made the decision to do it anyway. So there was a referendum vote that came after that, which that's highly unusual, but it did happen on the Front Range.
So what exactly was the referendum vote on?
I believe it was a commercial development.
So an individual project.
It was an individual project. And so there was not listening to staff. It was like, this isn't a good idea. Public was giving opposition to it, and the board went along with it anyway. My biggest takeaway from this one was personal biases need to be set aside when addressing an issue and implementing policy. That's pretty relevant for what we're going through with our comprehensive plan as well. The Colorado Economic Outlook was really good for the state of Colorado, not so good for Delaware County, where we remained plateaued for job growth, housing, and in some instances, for like wages, we dipped. But the rest of the state was doing really well. We were just in that bottom 15%. So
Were there other counties that were with us?
there were some underneath us that weren't so good. And then that's it for that portion. I do have an update on our engineer's opinion of probable cost for our 2 million gallon tank rehabilitation. That project is, let's see, just site work alone. So that's acquiring the property to set our temporary tank, making that piece so that it can take our temporary tank. And then that's in the future for a secondary drinking water tank in a future phase. Having that all there is estimated to be between $370,000 to $493,000. The total cost of rehabilitating that tank, aside from the site work, just the tank rehabilitation, we're looking at a range now of $1,866,600 up to $2,488,800. So this is up from $2 million. It's the longer the project waits, the more costs increase because materials, supplies are not going down and going up.
What are we waiting for?
We had to wait for our state revolving fund to say that we're good to go. We did get our project needs assessment approved through CDPHE, and this particular project has been given a green light for funding. We just need to apply now. We have our first after approval meeting coming up in the first week of June. Then we can apply for that funding to get it going.
When might money appear?
It'll be the end of this year going into next year. So we're looking at a spring construction.
We don't have money in-house to cover this.
Not $2.5 million.
How much do we have?
Yeah, I'd have to look, but we don't have enough to cover the entire cost of cover.
About?
We do have a $952,000 grant. Yeah.
Answer it at the next.
I will. Yeah. I don't have that answer. This is our agenda that we went for May 6th. This is our where we're at on designing our capital improvement plan for phase 1 of our water system improvements. And what we're looking at, the previous estimate for all of phase 1 was $8.4 million, and now our current estimate is between $10 and $10.8 million. Part of that is that there is, we have to do additional boring. We have alignment that has to happen at Lambert Mesa, and some of the risks that we've identified are, hey, we've got traffic control. We still have to negotiate easements with the county because right now it's going through private property. We have somebody in attendance that goes right through private property, and we're trying to remove those situations from occurring. Should never have gone through private property, but here we go. They should always follow rights, public rights. So those costs are going up as well. This is just a breakdown of where they came up with that probable opinion of cost. And then what you'll see is, let me see if I can flip this. This is our budget action. So this is our money in the bank. The first two sections or the first section is our actual checking accounts. And you can see that we do have some funds that bring in very little, if no interest at all. Our major account in UBB is our business money market account. It's receiving 4.82% interest rate. So it's pretty healthy. The one thing, you'll see some notes and brackets, hey, may close this account. The grant pass-through account was for one of our grants for the park. And really that could be transferred. We've expended that money. It's got a 0% interest rate. We could probably close the account and move it into our business money market just fine. Our internal grants, we have to keep this one open because it's how we receive grant money from the state, even though it has to have a 0% interest rate. And then to use that account, I will be moving that money, the $40,912, up into the business money market account. That was ARPA funds, and it was a mix. There was some state funds that got reimbursed into there, and some ARPA funds, so state, local, revolving fiscal funds. Our operating account is our main account. I'm not used to having an operating account where we also receive money and send checks out from. I'm used to having that receiving money being like our business money market account, and then we transfer in to our operating account to cover the checks that are going out that, for that disbursement period. That's really to stop fraud from happening. So, anybody that gets a check and then pretend like they've got that check and pay like their car payment with it through an online thing. I've been hit with fraud in different communities before where somebody has attacked us and tried to drain accounts. And so I'm not used to that. So it might be something we need to think about as changing the way that we receive revenue in, maybe to like our money market account that has that interest rate, and then transferring those funds into our operating account as needed.
I mean, if you don't have any reason to do it, I sure don't.
Okay.
Why we would do it that way, other than just it was done that way?
I think that's what it may have just been done that way. But the best practice is really to fund those accounts as needed, similar to what we do with our payroll account. So we do have a minimum balance for our payroll account, but every time we have a pay period, we transfer those funds into that account out of our operating account. And that's really a best practice so that you're not hit with fraud. Park donations. This one has been recommended by our third party, Michelle Duran, at Professional Management Solutions, to close. Transferred out. That $12,888 was for the skate park. It's built. That money has been exhausted. So we really should just transfer it into the business money market account, close that account. So that's coming.
So we paid our part.
It's
just still sitting in this account because it came out of some other.
It came out of the operating.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll just transfer it out. And then this one will probably fall off next month. You won't see 0911 park donations. Our payroll account, I explained that one a little bit. And then our WWTP, that's our interest rate and debt reserves. So it has a 0.15% interest rate for debt reserves. This is the amount that we're supposed to keep for the loans or the finance that we have. We have to keep this amount.
Is that the wastewater treatment plant? Is that what that
That's
is for
what that is.
specifically?
Correct.
Okay.
It's for the loans specific to the wastewater treatment facility. Then we do have two investment accounts at UBB. They receive a 5% and 4.7%, 5% interest rate. They're pretty healthy. They are 23-month CDs, and they're making some pretty good interest. You'll see that interest reflected in revenue reports coming up in future slides. And our Colo Trust investment accounts are doing phenomenal. So we receive this past 30-day period, we had a 5.41556% yield. That's really, really good, especially for just money sitting, making money for itself. And you'll see that this interest is also booked in relevant accounts, be it water, wastewater, or the general. We do have a pretty healthy bridge reserve that that's meant for repairs on our bridge on Samuel Wade Road, or the Samuel Wade Bridge. So we may have to pull from that soon because we do have some improvements that have been identified that need to happen to keep us in compliance. Okay, so this is a budget to actual. So this is as of April 29th. And as of this Thursday or Friday, we actually have more in our sales tax. So the county has dispersed a little over $80,000 more to us. They were behind. That was our first quarter payment, and they sent it in the middle of the second quarter. But it's okay, we have it. And you can see that we're realizing different revenues. We did have some of our marijuana occupational tax, that transaction fee, that $5 transaction fee. One of our dispensaries in town hadn't paid in a while, and we did have a rather large deposit today to cover those transactions. So that's going to go up too.
And don't we have quite a bit in that count already? I mean, in addition to what what was budgeted to come in, don't we have almost that much already in that account?
Yeah, that's not going to reflect on a month budget.
Right.
Actual.
But
Yes.
mostly, I think we have twice as much actually in there
And that would have
I mean,
been,
a
that would have been
budget.
reflected in the money market account. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I just, seems like we did take in about $130,000 in the 2023. And I don't think we spent some of it.
We spent some of it for like road repairs and road work last year for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Liquor license, so, you know, and I broke these down by subgroups. So again, taxes, licenses, permits and fees, intergovernmental revenues. I did recently file our highway user tax document, so I'm assuming we're gonna get that pretty soon. The state's really pretty good about doing those things as soon as you file the paperwork. And to be honest, we couldn't file that paperwork because we didn't have it yet, so I did it and sent it, so. So that means we're now ready for our fiscal year 23 audit because it's already there. So you have to show what we've spent, what we brought in, and what our actual balance is for the highway user tax fund. It balances, now that's ready, and now we should be able to receive our funding for this year. I also got an acceptance for our conservation trust fund. We're good. Our report was accepted and everything balances. To this account up here, the conservation trust fund 0857, that balances, including the 18 and 28 cents that we received in interest.
Where are you, what's your line item you just referred to?
Oh, I'm going back and forth.
Oh.
So it's the conservation trust fund funding that we get.
Which is 103309.
Yeah, and then that goes into, it's reflected into 0857.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
everything balanced between historic years past and what we've received so far this year.
Okay,
Administration department, we're right on target. You know, at the end of March, we should have been about 25%. We're at 27% at the end of April. So we're chugging along all right. Really, we should be about like 33%, but we're doing okay. We also haven't been paying, I took on a lot more work. The front staff have taken on a lot more work while we were hiring. We do have those positions filled now. We already have somebody who's already started. We have our new staff accountant starts on Monday, the 20th. So coming up. Law enforcement is actually a little under budget, but they're still on target. I suspect we're going to see some bigger expenses coming out of here because Axon and overtime. Yeah, so it's going to come up for our next monthly budget actual, but probably be more closer to that 33-35% mark. Building, we're still doing okay there. I do have a number of invoices that we need to send out for capturing money going all the way back to 22 for fees that we incurred that we didn't collect on. And so we're going to collect on that before they get a certificate of occupancy. It's going to happen. It's coming. Streets, we're 3%, but we also haven't, this doesn't reflect the work that they did recently with filling potholes and things like that. Those invoices were still outstanding in April. As of the 29th, I think we even had some in this disbursement package that'll then show up in our next month's budget to actual. We did have some credits. That's why you see some brackets where we had a credit of 173.22 that went into that account. That's because something was returned. So it shows up as a credit.
did you get reimbursed for what was going on with Black Hills at the old sewer plant?
I sent them an invoice. I don't think we've seen it
I
yet.
didn't see it.
Yeah. We did get a check today from Wind Water, so that's one of our suppliers for pipes and things. We had a credit that was a large credit. I said, no, I asked for that check to be cut to us. It was about $3,500. That's going to show up in the water account next month as well. Parks, so this is obviously going to ramp up pretty soon. We're going to see this come up because we have been doing work out at every one of our parks. Town Park specifically, we put in an ADA compliant access path to our park facility. So our guys recently completed that. It looks very good. I wish I had a picture of it. I have a picture, I just didn't.
Where is it in the park?
Going to the playground, over by the
Oh,
playground.
good. Where, okay, where that pad is.
Yes, yeah.
Good, thank you.
Water, so, our revenue is lagging behind. And we're gonna have to adjust our 20-year cash flow analysis, for any further projects. One of the issues that we had was I trusted a little too much in our system to be accurate, with water metering, and so like our water charges for usage, I overestimated 7 million additional gallons a month, based on our water usage report. So that number for revenue for water charges usage is going to be way lower than what it is, about $234,000 lower than what it should.
Will we have to do a budget amendment? because of that?
Only if we are going to expend more money than we bring in. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. So, especially since like our water tank relining project is going into next year. We'll just adjust more of the budget. Our personal services is right on with where it should be. Operating expenses is about exactly where it needs to be. It's a little bit higher than that 33% though. It's 40%. And then overall, we are, so far we are operating at a loss for this year, but by the end of the year, we'll probably see that number going down. Wastewater is doing very well. The increase is helping us to build our reserves to do improvements that we need out of our wastewater treatment facility. And so that's a good sign. If we go down all the way to the bottom, you'll see our net income is a lot higher than what we had budgeted for, but we also got reimbursed for Doris Avenue this year instead of last year. So that was a grant program. But this is good because we have to build our reserves to help us meet some of the state and federal mandates that are coming down for our licensure, to be able to even discharge effluent into our waterways. That means, rather than beat around the bush, that means a mechanical plant of some type is most likely going to be mandated by the states very soon.
That'll be a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, whole can of worms. Sanitation. So after adjusting sanitation to be more appropriately aligned with our personnel services, our guys that were getting paid out of their 100% of their salaries, they don't work 100% in sanitation. So we adjusted those so that those fixed allocations were more evenly distributed amongst other departments or other funds. And so as of right now, we're operating with, we have a net income of $38,901. Again, that's to build up for reserves, for repairs to our trash truck, for increases in maybe our tipping fees as they come out. We'll be able to afford those things. And we haven't changed our rates. We didn't do that this year. So, our airport revenue, you can see, I'm also tracking that. So the lease revenue that we receive, I've put that in as well. And I believe that there's supposed to be some projects happening for this one, very soon, with one of our aprons. I think the county is coordinating that to have a repaving of our runway, apron. And that is it for my town administrator's report. Yeah.
So in the water fund, is there a transfer from the general fund to the water fund for any reason?
There's none.
That's illegal.
No can do.
But I heard someplace that we're doing it. It's a reason for high rates out of town.
Sorry.
We're good.
Oh,
Yeah, no, mostly just to say with the water, sewer, and trash, we can't use general fund to
Not more than 10%. We can loan money freely.
not for, only if you were doing really well, right? You can do the other way around, but we can't put taxpayer money into the enterprise fund.
10% from a year, 10% of the operating fund of the total budget enterprise.
Can be
I believe you can transfer up to 10% of the operating budget of the enterprise from your general fund.
I've never read that. I don't know about that. Is
That's
it-
not, certainly could be wrong, but that's been my impression.
Yeah, I
I've not
don't,
heard that, but
if there is, that would, oh, man.
I'm not
I would
suggesting.
structure it as a loan that's interest bearing, but,
it has
yeah.
has to be,
yeah.
It can be done.
it has to be a loan. You can't just, yeah.
There are different exemptions and exceptions, but generally, we really should not subsidize our utilities. That shows that they're not doing it right, that we're not doing our utilities right. So,
All done with your report?
yeah.
Any more questions for Administrator Wynn? Otherwise, we'll move on to police report.
Okay, a couple of highlights. All department personnel, along with several deputies from the Gunnison County Sheriff's Department, received stop and bleed training. That training was put on by Delta Health free of charge for first responders. And in that process, now we're getting one of our officers trained as an instructor in stop and bleed, so we can train the rest of town staff, maybe help out some of the organizations around town with getting that training as well. We issued 23 verbal warnings under the new inoperable vehicle ordinance. We issued no citations for that. For the most part, everybody was really cooperative. And I think one of the questions we had was, well, what were we towing them off? We were not towing them off. A lot of vehicle owners just simply went down and renewed their tags, which was good. They realized they had been paying their insurance, just hadn't renewed their tags, so it made sense for them to do that. Some vehicles were moved, and it really decluttered some of our streets. Part of our focus with that was our intersections in particular, where we're noticing a lot of cars are having to creep out into the street to see around vehicles parked in the corners. That causes problems, especially when you have people trying to cross the street and walk. We have vehicles parked there, it's a little bit chaotic, so we're glad to have some of that decluttered. The other thing I'll point out is, we get a lot of questions on this, it seems like each time we do it, but tomorrow, May 15th, is Peace Officer Memorial Day. So we'll be lowering the flag to have masks on our police officers who were killed in line of duty and who were disabled in line of duty. But I'm putting that information out there because it seems like each time we lower the flag, we get questions as to why is it lower, and if we get or anything, but that's what I'm doing more. That's what
I do have one more I want to show you. So it goes into what Matt has talked, our chief manager has talked about with Public Works being able to outfit a patrol car. iWork program that we bought to help manage our fleet is up and running for fleet management. And so this is what the dashboard looks like. All of these are vehicles in the town that we currently have in our system. The higher the number, the worse the vehicle. The lower the number, the better condition the vehicle. And so, for example, if we look at this Public Works BH01, that means backhoe number 1. It's rated at a 16 on a 20-point scale. And so it's saying, if we click on that, we get a little more detail. Oh, you can't see it. Gosh darn it. But you can see that we're tracking it. It's got all of the information that we might need. The last time we had a service record. All of those can now be done. It also tracks hours, employee hours on it, as well as materials that would have been used, such as oil filters, lubrication. It does. We could do fuel, but that's not really what this program is geared toward. This is geared towards maintenance. So that we can have a better idea for fleet maintenance or fleet replacement. If we need trade something in, now might be the prime time to trade it in for something else. Fuel is tracked in our disbursements. We get a lot of paperwork on fuel. So there's a lot of supporting documentation on which vehicles are fueled up, filled up, where they're filled up, things like that. Mileage is also on here. You can see that.
Concurrent with fuel use.
I don't know. Yeah, but mileage is represented in this field, so you can actually see real mileage. in this first field.
How often would you update this sheet?
This could get, although this is
It's real.
as in real time. So we even set up an email address specific, and I'm not gonna give it out, but it's specific to maintenance. And so once something is brought up that needs to be maintenance, it sends an email to that email address. It starts the process going. Let's say it needs new windshield wipers, sends that email. Our mechanic, it's Clint Rose, could go in and say, yep, gonna replace that windshield wiper on this vehicle.
And then you have the invoice from the part shop for buying the wiper.
Correct.
That all
That also can tie into this. We can also send it into this. I thought it went up to 20, it goes up to 30. We do have a police vehicle that I have nicknamed the Exploder. It's the police Ford Explorer that is rated as a 30, so it's time. It has 110,227 miles on it. It says light use. We ran that one hard. So that one's probably at the end of its useful life. So, but I wanted to show you this. It's a really good program that we're excited to start using. And then the next piece that they're going to do
What's
is
it called again?
iWork
iWork?
with a Q. Yep. And then what you can see is we've got like fleet management, fleet requests, pavement management. So these are all of our like asset taggings, things like that. And then our work order management program. Those are next to be built, but fleet management is up and running. And I was really excited to attend that meeting this morning, saying, hey, it's ready to go. So that is it. That's all I got.
Did anybody have any questions for Chief Lamminger?
I'll point out with the mileage question, the patrol car, we use a Wi-Fi hotspot in the cars that also links to an app, so we can track every time the vehicle started, speeds, locations. We have city limits, geocached anytime they leave city limits or come back in. Everything with the vehicle is recorded, including mileage.
So what's the GPS component of that cost per vehicle per month or something?
It's part of our, it's just a bundled part of our Wi-Fi hotspot. So when we plug it into the vehicle, that's where we get our Wi-Fi to run our laptops in.
I see. So has there ever been any thought about a GPS unit in the rest of the town's vehicles?
As of this morning, I thought we learned that we actually have a Public Works FCC line for radios. So, and some of the radios we looked at also did GPS locating and GPS tagging, but it is something that we could do. It's easier with vehicles after like 2009 to do that sort of GPS tagging. And we have some older vehicles that I don't know how we can retrofit it without doing some work.
We
Yeah,
probably could do it without too much trouble on the door. So I would recommend that
sure.
personally.
Just a little second.
That's it for our reports.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to the next action items and presentations. And our first agenda item under that, number one, will be the public hearing. Consideration of variance to the setbacks at 231 and 235 Box Elder Avenue for the construction of an ADA ramp for access into Paonia Christian Fellowship Church. So this is my maiden voyage on a public hearing, and I'm going to just read from the script. I will now open the public hearing on the application submitted by Paonia Christian Fellowship Church for the property located at 231 and 235 Box Elder Avenue, Paonia, Colorado, 81428, for a variance to the setbacks required under the Paonia Municipal Code in order to permit the applicant's construction of a ramp providing ADA access to the building. The purpose of the hearing is to provide a public forum for all interested parties who wish to comment on these applications before the Board of Trustees. The procedure for the public hearing will be as follows. First, there will be a presentation by the applicant. After these two presentations, we will allow members of the public to speak up for 5 minutes. All testimony must be presented at the lectern after you give your full name and address, and I swear you in. Please do not repeat points made by others, but it is fine to say that you agree or disagree with a comment previously made. Please direct all your comments to the Board of Trustees and not to the town staff or applicant. After receiving public comments, we will allow the applicant and town staff an opportunity to respond and answer any questions raised by the public comments. I will then turn the matter over to the Board of Trustees, and the trustees may ask questions of anyone who testified. We generally will not ask questions during the presentations. Finally, I will close the public hearing, and the Board of Trustees will discuss the matter and may take some kind of action. Once the public hearing has closed, no further comment from the applicant or public will be taken. However, the board may ask for advice from the town attorney. Public hearings are recorded for the public record. So my first question is to the town clerk. Do you have proper notification? Yes, ma'am.
For the record, that's also attachments D and attachments E.
Thanks. Thank you. Do any trustees have any disclosures or conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts with regard to this variance? See none? Could we have the staff presentation? Would the town administrator please give the staff's presentation?
Yeah, so there's actually two staff reports for this. There was one that went to the zoning board of adjustments, and then also this follow-up report. And if it's okay, I'd rather just do this follow-up report since you've had all of this information in the agenda packet. But on April 1st of 2024, the zoning board of adjustments held a public hearing to discuss a variance from the required setbacks at 231 and 235 Box Elder Avenue, the construction of an ADA ramp to access Paonia Christian Fellowship Church. Because the setback variance encroaches onto the public right-of-way, the ZBOA gave a condition that the variance would be granted upon favorable determination from the Board of Trustees. So typically, the ZBOA would have made that determination, it's done, and then, that variance stands. Because this is into the public right-of-way, abutting a sidewalk, it was recommended that it go to the Board of Trustees for your consideration and determination as well. That's why this is that second step. This condition was considered by the town attorney, and its inclusion was requested since the ZBOA is an appointed body without the authority to grant encroachments onto the public right-of-way. Proper public notice has been given for this public hearing. It was given for the previous public hearing as well. A previous staff report was also given to the ZBOA that is relevant to the Board of Trustees and is also attached to this staff report.
Any other staff comments? Okay. With that, it's the applicant's presentation. Would the applicant or the applicant's representative please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and take the oath.
Thank you. My name is Josh McIntyre. I'm the pastor of Community Christian Fellowship. Would you like to know?
Do you swear to tell the truth in this matter?
Yes.
Thank you. Please make your presentation.
Yeah, so essentially, as Mr. Wynn has noted, there was, ready to preach here. As Mr. Wynn has noted, there was some, in our previous meeting, April 1st, I kind of gave you guys the story of what happened. We had a ramp previously existing that did provide access into the building if you needed a ramp, but it was very, very steep, and it was determined by a groundworks company that it was actually the cause of damage to our building, so some water damage. So their recommendation was to remove the ramp, which we promptly did, and now we would like to rebuild it. So the ramp aligns to the entrance on the west side of the building. Currently, there is already a staircase that exists in that 6-foot setback that abuts to the sidewalk, as previously noted. And kind of the way that we had looked at it, I know I had sent a lot of drawings and such to the town. The way that it looks is that we'd be able to get access at the 4.7 degree angle for ADA accessibility. Hey, yeah, there we go. How about that? We'd be able to get that from the sidewalk, this is on the southern corner, and basically be able to get it up to the proper incline. So we kind of have to do a little bit different ramp design. We did have some elderly folks who they did use that ramp when it was in existence, but again, the angle was so steep that it would hurt people's feet as they were walking up and down. This would also help us get caskets in and out of the building. Obviously, this drawing does not include the guardrails, which would be present as well. So yeah, we're just seeking to basically replace what we had, except it would be I guess maybe about 3 feet smaller, 3 feet set in from the sidewalk than what the other one was. The other one actually was a concrete ramp that was poured all the way out onto the sidewalk that had caused it to tilt and dump water, so. And that was constructed, I think, as far as I can tell, in the mid to early 80s. So, yeah, there's some better illustrations there. Yeah, so we're just seeking that variance so that we can build something that will keep water away from our building and allow people to get in, people with wheelchairs, strollers. And again, this would make getting the casket in and out of the building a lot easier. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. What questions do you guys have?
Yeah, let me first, I'd like now to open to the public comment portion of the public hearing. So if ask each, let's see, state your full name and address for the record, and I believe it's 5 minutes.
Correct.
During the hearing. So is there anyone from the public that would like to come up and address the board? Ms. Watson? Yes, but don't go.
Again, I have no problem providing my name and address for the hearing, but I do not give you permission to put it on YouTube and broadcast it around the world. It's not something you have control of, and it violates their privacy policy. So I can't speak that information out loud, but I will write it down. So I guess I'm kind of confused by reading this information. First of all, I want to preface it by saying we had a mental health proclamation at the beginning of the meeting, and we talked about make sure we have appropriate and accessible services. And I'd say a church is a service, and the handicap ramp.
Yeah, hang on. You know what? I forgot
Oh,
to
yeah,
ask
thank
you,
you.
do you swear to tell the truth in this matter?
I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder. Anyway, so it's that there, I think we need to proceed post haste with this. I'm confused by this information I see in the staff reports. I'm seeing that the variance encroaches onto the public right of way. I never thought that public right of way included private property, and the setback is private property. So I'm a little bit confused. I don't see any indication by our staff where this right of way is that it's encroaching on. Might be encroaching into the setback, but the setback is not a public right of way. It's too bad the administrator walked out, because this was his report, and I think he's the one that needs to answer my questions. So again, there are two different things on page 55. It says there was a ramp in the location previously that did not impede or protrude into the public right of way. It abutted the sidewalk. But then, back a few sentences earlier, let's see on the first page, it says because the setback variance encroaches in the public right of way. So there's really nonsensical and confusing things to me here. I didn't know how to interpret it. That being said, I want to point out that this is kind of a non-conforming use of the property. It's a non-conforming use of the land there. In 16-13-50 of their code, you're allowed non-conforming uses that predated the code, and this was built, and this use happened before this land use code was created. So it says that use can continue if not abandoned for more than a year. And I see also in the receipts that they received for the work, it's saying that they've paid for a special review. And I thought it was a variance, they paid for a special review twice. It was in their invoice and also the handwritten receipt. So I'm confused. I think the special review would have started with the planning commission. So that being said, I don't see why this has to come to the board at all, frankly. This seems like it's unreasonable to think that they can't access their building this way. I don't think, I think the fact that this is a continued use of the property in a certain way, comports with our code. And finally, if this is indeed a code issue, I know there are cities and towns that actually allow things like handicap ramps in the setbacks. And I don't know how much our code actually talks about what you can put in the setback. I was looking for it, I didn't find it immediately, but an ADA compliant ramp is really a necessity for accessibility. And I think they need to have their money given back to them. I mean, this has taken so long, and how many people have been precluded from attending services at that church because of the difficulty at access. Thank you.
So, do you have any rebuttal, or can you answer any of the questions from the applicant's perspective? Suzanne, if you would.
Okay,
Oh, I thought you were, well.
I'm finished, but my questions were for the staff.
Okay,
Thank
but-
She doesn't get to do that.
Right, and did you get was it 5 minutes?
She did.
Okay. Do you have any information that you could provide from your perspective? Questions asked?
I think your perspective is interesting. I sympathize. When this process first started, gosh, I'm a greenhorn. I had no idea about any of this stuff. So this is my first rodeo. But the appreciation for process of, hey, we should do this the right way. Even though, again, this is my first rodeo, I appreciated that a lot. That, hey, we should try to do this by the book as best we can. So I can't speak directly to what Ms. Watson has shared, except that, again, I really do appreciate her perspective. It's thought-provoking, and I'm going to be thinking about it for a while. So
Thank you.
thank you.
So can we hear anything from town staff that might shed a little light on this?
So, this is the second time that Ms. Watson has been critical of the staff report as the Plan Commission chair, and I think it's highly inappropriate. I just want to put that on the record.
This was not a planning commission decision.
I understand. So, one of the issues that we have in town that continues to crop up are nonconformities, where routinely the town would just approve something without any regard for our code. And we have a number of those issues on Grand Avenue. So this is one of those as well, where there was a nonconformity. That conformity was removed. We couldn't find that there was any sort of consideration given for an encroachment upon a public right-of-way. Because that nonconformity was removed, it's an accessory structure. It's not the entire building. They would have to come through and run it through the entire process to bring that nonconformity back, so they're requesting a variance. It's an accessory structure, not a primary structure. And that's why they had to go through this process. Again, we have a number of nonconformities that have been approved. This is a way to make sure that those nonconformities are actually given the public hearings that they need and are approved by this board or the Planning Commission or the Zoning Board of Adjustments. And that's why.
Thank you. I will now close. Are there any more public comments? Please come up. Okay, be ready to.
Yeah, swear. I swear. I will speak the truth, my opinion.
Wait, could you back up and give us your name and address?
Lori Patterson, Rio Grande.
And you swear to
I do.
tell the truth in this matter. Thank you.
It's my opinion, but truth is not really a question of opinions. It could be false for some.
I think you could
My
proceed.
opinion is this has taken an awful long time, and it's a double standard on the part of administrator, because there's plenty of things that get approved that should not have been. I was the victim of one of them, and there's plenty of things that he is wrong about. So that's all I want to say.
Personal attacks,
That's all I
constitutional rights.
have.
All right, so any more comments from the public? Hearing none, I will now close the public comment portion of the public hearing. Before we turn to trustee questions and deliberation, I want to state that the documents included as part of the record for this public hearing include all application materials submitted by the applicant, all materials included in the packets, all written referral and public comments received regarding the application, the notice of hearings, and the town's ordinances. Does anyone have any objection to the inclusion of these items in the record? Hearing none. We'll now take questions from the trustees. Who would like to, anyone have a question? Yes, trustee Brunner.
Who am I asking questions of? Whoever I want?
I believe you can ask questions of the applicant
So
and the staff.
was there a building permit involved in this?
Well, that's step C,
It's step C.
and we're still on step A, 0.5. So there will be a building permit when the time comes. The first step was to get the zoning board of appeals through. Then we have, these are not plans, these are just concept drawings. So we are getting actual plans drawn up architecturally. And at that point, there will be a building permit that goes ahead and goes through all of that, looks to see if it's all kosher.
What materials are you using for this new one?
So yeah, the idea was to build with Trex decking. That is kind of a composite material. It's highly durable, and again, it would allow for rain, snow, things like that to pass through instead of getting trapped underneath. So like with concrete up against a 120-year-old building just trapped all kinds of water. So Trex decking.
Right. So does any part of this actually encroach onto the sidewalk?
No, you can lightly see, here you go. If you look right here, see where it says 36 inches wide, that touches the sidewalk. But again, that would be necessary for a wheelchair. So, and I'm not sure, I have a different illustration at some point, but at the end of Box Elder Avenue and 3rd, and just to the south right here, I think I maybe updated my drawings since I sent these in to you. But there would be access even from the street to get up over the curve. So somebody with like a motorized scooter could do that. But
And this is narrower than the ones replacing.
it is, yeah, it's still within the ADA limits, but I think, gosh, I want to say the last one was like 8 or 10 feet wide. So it was a beast.
And this is about 4 feet, 4.5.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm having a little bit of a difficulty seeing this, but yes, it would, it's within the 36 inch. I think it's maybe 4 feet on the main ramp. It might be 5.
So it's considerably less encroachment
Considerably, yeah.
into the
For sure.
into the setback,
Mhm.
but it doesn't encroach on the right.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
So I have a question for Mr. Wen, or a couple. So in your report, you kind of mix and match terms of encroachment onto a right of way and into a setback. So do you agree that there is no encroachment onto the right of way?
I don't, there is an encroachment, it shows up right there,
And
where it does touch the sidewalk. And that's the whole reason for this. As I've explained before, in the past, the administrator would make decisions that would then be scrutinized by this board. And so I'm bringing it forward under a process that has been tried and true in multiple communities, many communities around the nation, to make sure that it's up to snuff, that our public has a say, and that we are making sure that we're conforming with our existing code. If you look at this drawing as well, it doesn't show that there's a setback off the sidewalk. It's hard to tell, but this is the very telling. It touches a sidewalk. And then you just heard from the applicant that he's planning to extend that to the street. This, for every one of these reasons, it should have come before the ZBOA. And that's the condition that it's here instead of the ZBOA making that decision, is because it does touch public property. And they don't have the right, they don't have the authority to allow for it to touch public property. It's the board. It's the board to make that decision.
So a citizen would need a board decision to put a cement ramp or sidewalk from their front door to the sidewalk and touch the sidewalk?
It would need consideration, absolutely. So to put this, a driveway cut requires a permit from us.
Driveway cut.
But if you're gonna redo that apron, it's still touching the public right of way. So you've also got to look at stormwater. So on some of these streets, you see a curb right there. So there's curb and gutter that matter. So, you know, it's to make sure that there's that positive flow. You heard that there was stormwater issues that undermine that foundation. So you've got to have a consideration given to make sure that there's positive flow into a stormwater system as well. So yes, if there is something that touches the public right of way, it really ought to come to us for permitting.
So then they're gonna have to come back with another permitting process to go from the sidewalk to the street?
That's your decision to make today.
Could you rephrase that question?
If they're going to extend this to the street, and that's not part of this decision, then they have to come back again? Is it gonna take them more than 2 months to go through that?
Could you go up and point out exactly where we're talking? You going to the street?
Yes.
I'm
Yeah,
not
so-
getting that from any of these diagrams.
And I would like to make one additional point too, if that's okay. The place that we're talking about where it touches the sidewalk is right here. So again, just to make sure that strollers, wheelchairs, you know, can easily get over it, it would come down to ground level. So yeah, it does reach there. As far as the idea of extending anything to the street, we're not discussing that. As a church, as a design team, there is no discussion to do that. There is already a driveway cut out here and over here on the north end of Box Elder, where Box Elder meets, there is an accessibility ramp already built in. So that was my point there. We're not building anything extra. We're a little bit done with that, but yeah, just making sure that people from the sidewalk have access. This, you know, and that raises the question too. Hey, what if we were to take that ramp back 6 inches and put in a concrete footer or something instead? It's those little 12 by 12 concrete. Yeah, it's not a good permanent thing, but if we took the ramp back a foot and still kept the 5 by 5 landing at the top, which is necessary for turning a wheelchair, would that get us out of the present pickle?
And did the previous ramp touch the sidewalk?
Yes, it was actually built onto the sidewalk. So,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
Are there any other questions from trustees? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing no more questions, I will now close the public hearing and turn the matter over to the Board of Trustees for consideration of the resolution listed on the agenda. So this is the time to deliberate amongst yourselves. If you have any other further comments?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to comment that I personally have used handicap ramps, and this is a necessary thing for this building. It's also a legal requirement that they have this. So in my opinion, this is a lesser encroaching construction than it was before. I live right in the neighborhood, walked past this 100 times, at least in the last year or so. And we do need to accommodate ADA requirements. So I see this as a thing that we should accommodate, but the reason it's here before us is a good reason. And we also need to make sure that it's designed correctly with ADA. I've got a little bit of a concern of the 28 feet before it hits the ramp. And I'm out of touch with the ADA requirements. You may need a landing. As I recall, I believe it used to be 12 feet. Needed a landing so that you didn't take a long run and somebody get out of control. But your engineer, whoever's going to draw your plan, should know that as well.
Right. Yeah, that's the old one.
Yes.
Trustee Bruner?
I too have no problem with them building this. My concern is that if we're going to be getting tough with our regulations, number one, I think once we farm them out for redoing because they're inadequate, it is the wrong time to be getting on a campaign of dotting the Ts and crossing the Is. I think Mr. Wynn's paperwork is going to need to be tuned up to an extreme degree. I believe there's at least a dozen inconsistencies in this report that are material. I think that there's no discussion of the non-conforming uses section of the code that, and the report, Mr. Wynn at one point explains that when the ramp was removed, the use was abandoned. Well, that section is very clear that abandonment takes a year, and the use is not abandoned by taking out the ramp to rebuild another one. The use is not the sticks and the boards. Use is the use. I'm not sure I understand the encroachment issue, but the existing ramp, the previous ramp encroached. This ramp encroaches less. The non-conforming building, existing uses that predate the code, which I believe this is, it's basically by right if it's a lesser encroachment. And there are conditions given that should be met, but it's illogical to think that all three of them need to be met. And in fact, in this case, all three of them are not met. One of them is, one reason to allow it is if a building inspector orders it. Another is if it's maintenance to keep the building in good shape, which I believe this one is. And the third is if it receives a variance from the zoning board of adjustment. It's inconsistent to think that an order from the building inspector also has to be a maintenance repair and also has to get a variance from the zoning board of adjustment. I mean, where would that leave a person if a building inspector ordered them to do something and the zoning board of adjustment said they couldn't do it? I mean, it's illogical. And then it also says that uses can be varied in the same manner, and your uses aren't going to be ordered by a building inspector either. So by decreasing the encroachment to preserve the building, in my opinion, is by right. Now, if it does need to go to the zoning board of adjustment, our statute is very clear. It has to be the officer that requires this has to immediately transmit the entire record to the zoning board of adjustment. I would like to know that that was done in this case immediately upon the stop work order. And the zoning board of adjustment is to decide the matter within 30 days. And if it had to go to the zoning board of adjustment, given that the encroachment on the sidewalk is less than the planned encroachment, I think the matter should have been into there.
Into where?
At the zoning board of adjustment, which should have been done within 30 days of the filing of the appeal.
Is there any reason you think it didn't?
I have no idea but I know it didn't, because the appeal was filed on the 21st of February and the hearing was on the 1st of April. If I have the dates.
And I don't know, I'm just asking you.
So, well, by the record in the packet, it was more than 30 days, and I don't understand why. So I would make the motion to approve the use, because here we are, and we're not going to back it up into something else now, that we apologize for the delay and refund their money. If anyone would second.
Before we entertain, I want to make sure everyone else has had an opportunity to speak before we put a motion on the
Point of
table.
order, there's a motion on the floor. We have to follow through. Call for a second.
Thank you. All right. Do I have a second? Okay, hearing none, let's continue discussion. If others have things to say. I guess here's my perspective. This was done to be very conservative based on the history that goes on in this town. So I am not casting aspersions. I'm sorry, I think it was important that this be brought into a public setting because of the fact it butts up against that sidewalk. And it's gonna be different than it was. So I have no problem with that, with this process personally. So with that, would anyone else like to entertain a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this project.
Can you? Okay, here, wait a minute.
I have to pull it up.
It is number, it's got 53 in the margin, if that would help.
That's where I'm going. Six.
You try.
I'm trying to get to it.
Here, I have it for you.
I've got it right here.
That was the agenda. Here, you in the back, thank you.
I hate computers.
Here.
Okay, I move to approve a variance number 2024-01 because it mitigates an existing non-conforming encroachment and there is a need for the use that is described by the applicant with meeting the requirements of the ADA. And there exists a hardship to the applicant that is unique to the property and the approval of this intends to relieve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Our next agenda item is item number 2, updated SBA lease agreement for the cell tower. And I believe we have our attorney to give us a little intro to that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Nice to be here with you tonight. Before you tonight is a proposed amendment to the cell phone tower lease, the existing cell phone tower lease between the town and SBA Towers 2 LLC. This is in relation to the cell phone tower on what I believe is referred to as P Hill. The SBA Towers, the tenant, has requested to increase the height of that cell phone tower from 55 feet to 75 feet. In exchange for that, they're proposing to provide the town with a one-time payment of $15,000, which is intended to cover the town's legal costs related to negotiating this agreement. And that money can also be used for any other municipal purposes. And then there will be an increase in the rent. So we are on the 4th term here. Yep, the one that's being highlighted. So this rent has been increased by $5,400. So from $9,611 to $15,011. And then each term thereafter, which is every 5 years, the rent will increase by 12.5%. There are other provisions in this proposed First Amendment to the lease that are really intended to provide further protection to the town. So there is a requirement that once the tenant has completed construction of the increased tower height, they are required to restore the property to its prior condition. We've also included requirements that the tenant name the town as an additional insured under their general liability policy. And there's provisions addressing what happens, once the lease ends, should they fail to remove their property from the town's property, then there is a requirement that they pay increased rent. So I'm happy to answer any questions for you about this. I have to admit, I'm kind of got caught up to speed on this just recently since I'm kind of late coming into it. But I know that Nick in our office had worked on this diligently addressing some of the concerns that the board had with respect to the initial lease that was proposed. And I did want to confirm, I did speak to the landlord, the tenant, SBA Towers, today to ask about lighting on the cell phone tower. And they have stated that there will be no lighting on this cell phone tower. Obviously, they do have to comply with any sort of FAA requirements with respect to lighting, but I guess the height of this tower does not require any lighting. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes,
So we did confirm that the FAA isn't going to require lighting, at least that's from the leasee. Or from SBA Communications. I should note that the annual rent is split between us and the family that provided this land. So that $15,011 is actually half. That's what we would receive.
and I might add that the 15,000 that is in here for the legal costs, all of that, the full 15,000 comes to the town. Paonia does not need to be split with the lessee.
Correct.
Any comments from the public? Please.
I'm Laura Chittenden. I hadn't heard about the increased tower size, and I was just wondering if there is also an increase in power or output or anything that the citizens living in the vicinity of P Hill should be concerned about.
Thank you. Other comments?
Announce myself again.
If you'll sign the sheet.
Yeah. It's notable that this town is only talking about rent on the cell tower. This size, increased size, that's 1/3 increased. We don't even know what kind of equipment is going to be on that tower. What's the power? What is the radiation from it? We know nothing. And we know from other cities, other towns around the world, that these towers are deleterious, are injurious to human health. And there's no information on that for the people. And I want to know where it is before you make a decision on allowing it to be increased and not knowing exactly what is going to be on it.
Other comments? Go ahead.
I know we're working on a new comprehensive plan, but it's ironic because in the current one that we're working under, it says it makes a commitment for EFM, electromagnetic frequency awareness. And I'm wondering how that comports with this. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Thank you. And any staff comments for staff from the trustees? Or questions?
Can you expound on the lighting a little bit more?
Yeah, so typically when the vertical height is what matters, the FAA says, hey, you might have to have a blinking strobe. We got an email from SBA that said they're not going to be required to have a blinking strobe on it. And then we're also saying you're not going to illuminate it from the bottom. You're not going to do those things.
No red light blinking on and off?
They're saying that they shouldn't need that.
Okay. Do we know anything about the EFM emissions since there's a commitment in our existing plan? It's news to me, but since the question's been raised.
Yeah, so I don't know about that. I can tell you that this isn't to boost new equipment from what I understand. This is to add a new carrier to the tower. And one of those carriers that has been knocking on our door to see if this has been done yet is Verizon Wireless.
So segment of the public would be very happy to see it.
Yes.
I think so.
Any other comments from trustees? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this lease agreement with SBA Network Services for the tower on P Hill.
Second,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. Our next agenda item is item number 3, parking limits on Grand Avenue. That was asked, Laura Chittenden asked to be on the agenda to discuss this issue. That she and I had this discussion earlier. So if you're comfortable coming up and just kind of giving us your concern.
So I'm Laura Chittenden. I'm a resident of Paonia and I own Indigo Auto at 230 Grand Avenue. I'm coming before the board because I'm concerned about the lack of parking limits on the 100 and 200 block of Grand Avenue. So until a few years ago, there were 2-hour parking limit signs on the 2 blocks. My understanding was that they were removed 3, maybe 4 years ago due to lack of ability to enforce or something to that effect. I feel strongly that having a vibrant downtown district, which incidentally brings in a lot of sales tax revenue to the town, is really important, and that can only be vibrant if there are places to park. I know that we've all, or most of us, have driven up and down the street looking for a place to park and unable to find one. In my experience, there are a lot of people who work on Grand and employees of people, businesses on Grand who park all day long. There are also, already a couple people living in apartments above who do park on the block all day and all night. There are still no parking between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. signs, but they're so old and decrepit, they're almost hard to read and nobody seems to know that they're there. So there's been no enforcement of overnight parking. So, street sweepers, plowing hasn't been able to access the entire road because there hasn't been any enforcement there. So, one aspect of a shift in habits could be, education of business owners, that would be ideal to ask their employees and themselves to not park in front of the store or business or office. I know a lot of the other businesses on the 2 blocks have parking behind. I don't have parking behind. My employees walk or bike or park in the back lot. I tend to park around the corner as needed. So I feel strongly that there needs to be something moving forward, especially as more apartments are created, as more businesses are moving to the block. I talked to someone on the 100 block. They have a hard time finding places to park anymore with all the construction, et cetera. On my block, it's, people parking all day. So I guess what I'm asking of the town is that potentially the overnight parking signs get replaced or renewed, just some way so that they're more noticeable. I would ask that the 2-hour parking signs get put back up, that be a consideration for the 100 and 200 block of Grand. And I think it would be worth considering as dwelling units are created on those 2 blocks of Grand, that there needs to be some kind of agreement that there is no parking included, that parking is not, an all-day deal. And the other thing that I would ask is that the board talk to the police chief or whoever about how enforcement can work of 2-hour limits. When we had 2-hour limits, there was at least a sign to point to, but again, enforcement was lacking. So I really appreciate you hearing me, and obviously it's, an issue close to my heart, especially as, a food store. People do need to be able to park close by if possible. But I also just see it as the vibrancy of the whole, commercial district in town relies on movement in the parking world, not stagnation. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just add on that Laura had spoken to me and I suggested that she fill out the form to come in front of us. So we are certainly not in a position to do any motion making on this particular item as it's a presentation, but I did want to get the conversation started. And one of the things I will say is there is nothing in our code about 2-hour parking downtown. Right, I mean, and I don't know that there's anything in the code about not parking on those streets from 3 to 6. So signs were put up that probably didn't have the law behind them. So that's all I can say. But I certainly understand what you're saying, and I've heard other people that businesses in the 100 block say the same thing. So at this point, I kind of like to open it up to some discussion so that we could decide if we'd like to put something on a future agenda to ask staff to work on. And
I think that's a good idea, that we put, consider that in a future meeting.
anyone else? Trustee
I
Bruno?
want to thank Laura very much for bringing this to us. This has been a question of how am I going to get the board to consider this? I think that the 2-hour parking, I know that we had 2-hour parking. It was enforced at some point in the past. There was also no parking in front of the theater during theater hours as a way for people to disperse quickly if there was a fire in the theater. I'm actually surprised that that's not there anymore. Be curious to know if is that no longer a consideration. I was looking up parking things in the code myself, and it's interesting. We still have a 3-day parking for trailers in town, and I'm curious about enforcement on that one. I personally think we should have a 3-day limit on parking generally. You got to move it, get it off the street, because parking is a big deal here. We've got big problems with parking. We used to have a parking fund that 2 individuals were held up for many thousands of dollars, and then the thing was abandoned, but their money wasn't given back. I think we need to start looking at the possibility of some kind of parking district. I don't know how we're going to make more parking, but I mean, if you want to, I mean, in my opinion, this town is a vibrant town. This Main Street is full. I've never seen this until the last year or two on a steady basis. And yeah, we're going to have to deal with it. Or that or drop our parking requirements, off-street parking requirements altogether. So thank you for bringing it up.
Trustee Sullivan?
We're in the midst of a code rewrite, and I think this is a good place for that. I think that we can take this input and put it into the code rewrite, and we bring it before the board all at once.
If I could, I would rather not wait, because the code rewrite, we won't see for at least another 9 months.
Let's set a public hearing and do it.
Anyway, I just want to throw that, I think this needs more near-term attention.
Yeah, probably this rewrite's going to take 1.5 years.
Yeah, well, anyway, we would get it in there the right way, but I think we need to talk about it in the near term.
And then they can fix our mistakes.
Yeah. Trustee Valentine? Any thoughts?
I think we should send it to a full time. We should do something.
So let's see, at this point, yes, Officer Lamenter. or-
If I may point out, both Mayor Smith and Trustee Brewer are correct. Those signs are posted, but you will not find those anywhere publicly accessible area of our website. That's why that's not being enforced, because we don't have anywhere to stand with those. Trustee Bruner is correct that we got time limits on streets and extension industry, however, it addresses trailers only, RVs, OHVs, not vehicles themselves. The 2-hour thing has also been mentioned several times. I think something that probably should be considered as well is the mixed use out there, where if we have residences and businesses, it may not be feasible for residents to come move their vehicle every 2 hours. But that would be something that would be addressed by the board, or at least looked at. I think that's a good idea.
Yes, Trustee.
Do you think that it would be enforceable if there was a well thought out limit on parking on particularly Grand Avenue? Can you do
Certainly, I
it?
think, the reality here is anything's enforceable if we commit the time to it, right? If it's a focus for it, absolutely, we can commit the guys to it. It becomes more difficult depending on how busy we are, what else is going on, but I see no reason at all why parts of it are certain days or certain hours certainly could be enforced, particularly if that's what the community would like.
It wouldn't be the first priority.
Not if we have calls for service on the board, right? But in all fairness, our board's not static with calls all day long anyway, so we have time to be proactive with certain things.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to turn to you, Administrator Wynn.
Yeah, so,
So we could-
absolutely, it should be really easy to update any sort of decision that you guys make for parking regulations. Ordinance 2023-06 revised our traffic schedule, reduced speed limits, changed, added crosswalks, and then also changed yield signs to stop signs. So now it's codified. This is our Paonia Municipal Code. And so it is easier to write a ticket, a traffic citation, or a uniform traffic citation because we have it codified. If somebody blows through a stop sign, now you can write a ticket because it's a stop. It's actually in our traffic code. Same thing exists for parking restrictions. Right now, we only have parking restrictions for six streets. To add to the schedule would be relatively simple, but it would, what we're not talking about is no parking. We're talking about restricted hours of parking, which can also be added to the schedule, and then that definition created. So it's doable. My recommendation would not be to go with a code rewrite because it's a new addition to the code. It's not that we're just cleaning something up, but we're adding to an existing traffic code. So that's my 2 cents.
Any comments from trustees? Let me just ask the question. Do we have in our code, you can't make a left-hand turn?
No.
See, we have signs and no code behind them, but.
It's a double yellow line.
Yeah, we have other, she's correct, we have other ordinances disregarding traffic control device, which painted lines would be. So we have other ways to enforce that, which we have been using. But the other thing to keep in mind is that these changes also need to be available. Our municipal judges made this very clear that these changes need to be available and open to the public to see. It's not fair or responsible for us to be writing citations for things that may have been passed that aren't available to the public to read and understand. So, as we make these changes, we would update those here and that way.
Can you elaborate on what the judge meant by that? What she thought would be the best way to let people know of traffic changes?
Just so they're available, not something where the only way you would ever see the text of an ordinance change or a new ordinance would be to attend this meeting. Those would be available through our usual means, whether that's requesting a copy or they're posted to the town's website. And equally as important is that our officers are able to explain that ordinance and the carve-outs and grants we have within that ordinance.
Okay, because we just did a Text My Gov to let people know about the signs changing, which put the map in Text My Gov, but you have to have Text My Gov. So, yes.
I was gonna say, after the 30-day publishing period is over, or the protest period, then it goes to our Muni code, and until it's codified, which is when it's actually put in, it's available on the very first page. But it says adopted ordinance is not yet codified, so at that point, they are actually on our online code for people to be directed to this one.
This one is missing from our online code.
I saw that. But I did see that on the town website, there was at the very top of announcements, there was the new speed limits put there. So anyway, we
have a new map.
If we do, let me just finish it. We may see how the public does with what we have, how we have notified them, and maybe have to think of other ways. But I would definitely agree that anything we change in the traffic code be very available to folks through all the means we can use. And Trustee Byrne?
Is there a restriping on our schedule? I mean, I'm interested to be reminded that there's a double yellow on the street. They're getting pretty faint.
Would really like to buy a paint sprayer so we can do this work. But I'll probably come at a future meeting Because every place that we have a stop sign, we'll have to put a stop bar. We also have to set back no parking, so people aren't parking at the intersection or blocking sidewalk ramps, which you see around town as well. So there will be no parking yellow lines, but it's coming. We got to buy a paint sprayer. Otherwise, they're out there with cans of spray paint.
And I forgot to ask if the public had some comments on this. So if people from the public would like to come up, come on up. Ms. Watson? You're the only hand I saw. If there are others, I'll get you.
So, my comments, when I come and present here at the podium, I'm speaking as a citizen. I'm not wearing any hat as to any position I hold at town hall. But I will say, when I came tonight, I did park on the street, but the last time I came and there was a public hearing and I knew I was going to be on the other side of the table there. Oh, no, I've never seen the street so jammed. There was not a single parking space open. And I actually parked behind town hall. So essentially when we're behind the other side of the table, we're kind of employees of the town in a way, even though you're trustees. And I think maybe we can start making an example by using the lot behind town hall when acting in an official capacity to allow the front spaces to be open for the public, whether they're attending the meetings or attending entertainment events at night. So just as a reminder, I don't know where everybody parks, and I know some people walk, which is great, but town hall parking lot might be the most appropriate place to park when attending town events in an official capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, thank you. So I guess at this point, I'm not quite sure how we move forward with this topic, but it sounds like everyone would like to see us be presented with some approach to dealing with the parking on first and second 100 blocks. So at this point, do we just ask the staff to the police chief and the administrator to visit?
This would be a really good item to put before the Public Safety Committee for consideration.
It's upcoming. Okay, well, so I guess because we're not making a motion on it, Laura, come on up.
I was just
I'm just
curious.
gonna give you an opportunity since you were the one that brought it.
I was just curious how it relates to public safety or what public safety committee encompasses beyond safety.
The police department,
Oh, okay, thank you.
just so you'll get the connection.
Thank you.
I guess in some ways I'm okay with that, but I'm also not okay with that, and here's why. And it has nothing to do with anybody who may be on the Public Safety Committee, but I feel like this is a bit of an urgent issue that I would really kind of like the police chief and the staff to work on, and something that they could bring to us that we have the police officers to enforce. Yes.
Point, committees cannot take any action whatsoever.
Right.
And that's taking action if they brought something to the council.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. In for this particular issue, which I think has an urgency, I'd rather have the staff work on it than the trustees, frankly. That's my 2 cents. So we could have an actual draft ordinance perhaps brought to us, backed up with whether staff can do it. Because the trustees are somewhat limited on were you thinking that the 2 trustees would kind of research ideas other towns are doing? What were you thinking?
No,
And I think an open discussion on this.
Yeah, so what we discussed in our workshop was that individual committees would take up an issue such as this and work with staff to develop an ordinance to be brought back before the entire board. And if you remember, or if you recall, we had also talked about out of those committees, we would introduce who introduced the bill or who introduced this particular ordinance to be discussed before the board, something we have never done before. So it's not staff that brings legislation to you, it's the board that considers legislation. Now, you can ask us to draft something, But it's, that at the top, it shouldn't be introduced by Town Administrator Stefan Wynn. It should be, it should say introduced by trustee.
Okay, I see what you're saying about the committee. So in this case, you are suggesting the committee would sit down with staff.
Correct.
So that is, I was not seeing that connection.
Gotcha.
And was thinking they were gonna have to go off on their own and do research, which didn't seem like it would get to our urgency. Thank you for that. So, so we don't have to make a decision on this at this point. We could get through the committees, because that is 2 more items down. Nope, 3. If you're all good with that, we could pick this up at the committee time. Because again, can we make a motion? Because it was a presentation.
It's not an action item. It was a presentation before the board.
Right. And I thought we had to do action items, have motions.
Yes.
Is that right? Yep. So, okay. All right. So we can't make a motion. So are you good with continuing our agenda? And we'll come back once we have committees assigned. Okay. So with that, we have agenda item number 4, consideration of appointing an interested applicant to the vacant seat on the Board of Trustees. And Sam, could you do a little intro for that?
You have 2 applications and letters of interest in your packets. On my staff report, at the mayor's request, I detailed how you guys have, or how the board has done appointments the past, I believe, 3 or 4 times. It seemed to be a way that worked really well and everybody was pleased with. So I have papers ready for you guys when you're ready to do the ballot part of it. You have to put your name on it as well as who you vote for, and it has to be read for the record, but we're ready to move forward with that process.
Thank you. And with that, we have 2 interested persons, Lucy Hunter and Cherie. Oh, I'm gonna say it again. Fisher were the 2 folks that were interested. So are they here tonight? Are you Lucy?
I am.
So Lucy, if you would you just come up and introduce yourself to us, your interest, and if any of the trustees might have a question or 2 for you.
I'm Lucy Hunter. I'm 50 years old. What do you want to know? I'm thinking what was all in the bios when you did yours and you're up for election. I'm an engineer. I own the building next door. I'm a mom. I
So
live in
you're a
county.
neighbor.
What's that?
You're a neighbor.
I am.
Anybody have any particular questions they'd like to ask of Lucy?
You're very brave for submitting your application to the board. That's what I like to say.
Thank you.
So what makes you interested in doing it?
I like the direction the town's going in. I feel like I have a skill set that would be useful. I am so nervous speaking in public, so that's the downside. Something else I should mention is the meeting on the 28th, where I to be chosen, I am not available to be at that meeting, because I have a private event.
It's the next meeting.
It is.
Aren't we voting tonight? It would be the swearing in. She could be sworn in, whoever.
I'm ready to swear.
Yeah,
whoever in.
I don't think that's a problem.
Just letting you know.
Based on what we did when I got on. So anyone else have any questions for Ms. Hunter? Okay. Thank you. And then is Cherie here? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, if you're all ready, Sam has ballots for each of you to fill out. I do not vote. And on your ballot, put your name and who you would like to see to fill the seat.
Ballot of your own design. Feel bad I'm standing. We have unanimous votes for Ms. Hunter.
Thank you. So,
You made it too easy. Thank you, thank you.
and I think you get sworn in right now.
Yes,
I think Sam probably, I mean, but she has.
I figured she had two names.
Anybody?
You know who it's gonna be selected. That's how to pay those.
Take your picture.
Oh, Stefan will take your picture. Oh, we don't have Tammy here.
She's on board.
Oh, Tammy.
Can we stand in front of the flags? It makes a nice picture.
We're gonna move some chairs.
Nice.
Oh, I'm confident that our new trustee will be both of those. You raise your right hand. I, Lucy Hunter. I, Lucy Hunter. Affirm that I will faithfully support the Constitution of the United States. Affirm that I will faithfully support the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution and laws of the state of Colorado. The Constitution and laws of the state of Colorado. And the laws of the town of Paonia. And the laws of the town of Paonia. And I will faithfully perform the duties. And I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of trustee. The office of trustee. Of the town of Paonia. Of the town of Paonia. To which I have been appointed. To which I have been appointed. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Signature. It was tricky.
Madam Mayor, I move that we take a 5-minute recess.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Never a bad idea.
I have to tell you, that was my idea, I needed it. Deal.
Thank you, guys.
And do we have all of our, no, we don't have Ray. Is he out there? I don't know if I hear Rick's voice.
You have a quorum.
Oh, I do have a quorum. Let's see. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on. So the next, do you need an agenda? I got it. You got it? Okay, great. The next is consideration of approval of Board of Trustees to endorse a trustee to join the Colorado Municipal League Executive Board. And this was brought up as an announcement at our last meeting. And the Colorado Municipal League has its own board and they look for members. I think they have how many members from small towns? 2,000 or less?
2,000 less, I believe it's 4.
Okay, so they're looking for folks from a small town, elected or appointed, to put their name in to be voted on to be board members for the Colorado Municipal League. Yes, trustee.
Madam Mayor, I nominate Kathy Schwartz.
There you
go. Perfect. Show up for self-defense. I think she'd be perfect for the position, and I think she would probably accept it.
She probably would, but
She's here.
no, I don't think she's online. I don't think.
No, she's not.
Yeah,
So this
she was
is an
not.
official nomination, just to be clear, right?
Right.
Okay, just making sure.
No, it was serious.
I think he's serious.
Yeah,
No, you
that's
meant.
why I'm double checking.
And so there are 2 letters that have to be filled out, one from the trustee, and then they have to get an endorsement from the Board of Trustees, and that's also another letter that's in here. And what it means is your name is put into the ballot to be voted on at the Colorado Municipal League's meeting they have their annual meeting in June on the Front Range, June 20th or so.
And it's a 2-year commitment. And I served on the board way back when, and I got an education on how everything works in cities and towns, as well as the state legislature, because the Colorado Municipal League is the lobbying unit for the cities and towns in Colorado. I also learned a hell of a lot about water law that I didn't even want to get, because at that time, the Colorado Compact was before the CML and the legislature. And it's amazing how the process is done. I don't have 2 years left on my term of service, so I don't think that I should run for office. I only have 1 year and 11 months left.
Really?
6 days. So many hours.
Mayor, if I could ask, could you amend your motion to include a second in case Kathy doesn't want to accept, or trustee Schwartz doesn't want to accept it?
Well, I was thinking I should amend my motion to add, if she would, please, for the next, for a backup. That's not part of it.
I was gonna say procedurally, that would help because they do need this letter by the 31st and we'd be cutting it really close if we left it to the next meeting. So
I'll second the motion pending trustee Schwartz's agreement to it.
Okay, all in favor?
So who's the second person that you're nominating?
Or is it one?
No, so just her?
But yeah,
And if she chooses not to go, maybe we just don't have anyone on the ballot at the meeting.
It would be behoove the city or the town to have a representative as well.
are you interested?
I think I'm in the same boat as I'm filling the mayor's vacated seat, so I'm at a year and 11 months.
If I didn't understand that, I was wondering if you would like to be nominated for the consideration to the Colorado Municipal League.
I appreciate that, but I understand it's a two-year commitment, which is beyond my term of service.
She's filling my seat, and I would have had a year and 11 months too.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're being conservative and making sure. Would anyone else like to consider it?
You can
At the
attend
back.
by Zoom now. Before we attended by a phone, and they picked up the phone and used the phone microphone for the meeting. It was impossible to hear. Now, this was in the early 2000s, but things are much better. But they do prefer that you go. The meetings are in Denver. They have their building in Denver. I think it's on 9th. And the meeting starts at 9:30 in the morning. And it goes until 3 o'clock. They feed you a really great lunch and you get to meet and greet a ton of people. The movers and shakers of the entire state. But you also get to a real lesson on how things are done, because there's mayors and administrators and trustees, and they tell you how they did it in their town. And you get a lot of really great ideas.
It's pretty quiet, so you want to leave it a single motion for Kathy and we'll see how she
Is
feels.
being just shy of the 2-year commitment really a problem?
I don't know.
You have to be an elected or appointed official to serve. That's part of the requirements to serve.
And you have the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're
Not that I.
three lame dogs
Want to
here.
do it.
All right, well, let's see how Kathy feels.
Okay. You should come to meetings and defend yourself.
Well, she sort of wanted to, but I think it wasn't gonna work out. She wasn't feeling well. All right, next agenda item is item number 6, board committee discussion and consideration of adoption of resolution 2024-09, roles of board committees. So before we came back into session, trustee Check asked me, or was the intent to get these committees filled tonight, which was my ideal attempt, but I don't know if, because the resolution is on there, which says how the committee members are voted on by the trustees. It is not the mayor's decision to put trustees on the committees. And I don't know that we can't do it tonight. I was hoping we would get these committees established tonight. We already have a finance committee, but we don't have a personnel, public safety and parks. So I don't know if there's any violation of the agenda, but why don't we just start out talking about the content of the 4 committee duties, which we had a public work session on May 6th, where these draft committee duties were presented. And they have not been modified since that work session. And you have them in the packet. So we put the finance committee first, and trustee Schwartz and I are on the finance committee. And I had a discussion with staff, and they would really like that I stay on the finance committee. I had said, when we see about our new trustee. But given my institutional knowledge of that, I kind of like to stay on it with Kathy Schwartz, trustee Schwartz, if you're all right with that. And I didn't know if anybody had any comments to make on this proposed draft revision to the finance committee, which is on page 108 of the packet. Okay with it? And let me just ask before we go, the few public folks left, does anybody have any comments on the committee duties?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, well then, let's continue. Are you all, we've heard this. I think at some point we need to make a motion to accept the committee duties. So let's just go through all 4 committee duties first, and then talk about potential members and the resolution. Let's look at the 4 committee duties as proposed for revision and the resolution, and look at all of that, and then we can talk about committee members.
Just looked at decided that the finance committee acceptable to all of us.
Well, can I speak a little louder?
Mayor Smith just mentioned the finance committee, and if everybody saw the revisions and was acceptable to them. And I can hear a no, so I assume that was.
Thank you.
Over the revisions.
Sure, you want to talk about something specifically?
Can you just point them out?
Do you have them in front of you?
I have.
The stricken, mostly, do you have the stricken underline?
Right, yeah.
Okay,
So
that-
that's the same as we had at the.
Yes, at the work session, yeah, I just,
Changed.
no, it has not changed, and I'm happy to go through it, I just want to make sure you had the stricken underline, so I was not assuming something.
Mayor, I don't have any comments on the finance committee duties.
Okay,
And I am happy with both you and trustee Schultz being on that committee.
okay, thank you. So trustee Bruner, that first paragraph, we had removed the finance director / treasurer from that intro, simply because accomplished by working closely with finance director whose finances is it the committee's integral to maintaining adequate internal controls as required by that has been added since the original draft that was on file. Not, but this is how it came to the work session, is how you see it here.
Which is that?
Nothing. Well, the first paragraph,
Yeah.
the intro paragraph was brought to the board, and I think we added the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. That was not in the one that was dated 2023.
But this is exactly how you saw it at the workshop.
Right, yeah, it hasn't changed from the work session.
Yeah.
So did you, rather than go through it, do you have any specific questions?
I'm happy to see that it provides some oversight.
Okay, yeah, definitely the intent. Anybody else have any comments on this particular one? Before we move to the next one? Okay, seeing none? Oh, let's see, Personnel Committee. So this is as it was presented at the work session. And the only question I have was, so the committee would be made up of me, the mayor, as the mayor now, but and whoever is the mayor into the future, a trustee chosen by staff, and a staff member chosen by staff would be the 3 members of this committee. Oh, I know what it was. The second paragraph, Personnel Committee also assists the mayor and board of trustees in the hiring process for the town administrator. So that would also include that same employee, would be part of that hiring as well. I just want to make sure that was clear. Trustee.
Is the attorney still with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Yes.
Yes, I am here.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the purpose of the committee is to hear grievances in accordance with requirements within the personnel policies and determine appeals, et cetera. Do we have the authority to delegate that power to individual trustees? Or would those final decisions have to be made by the board?
No, my understanding of the grievance policy and your personnel policy, which I honestly don't have a lot of experience with, is that you can delegate that authority to one trustee, because I think it contemplates some sort of a committee, which is what is being proposed here. So as far as I understand, this is acceptable.
And you've read this?
I saw it in the packet tonight. That's the first time I've read it, but yes.
Any other questions, comments? Trustees? Okay. Let's move to the next one, which is the Public Safety Committee. And Mrs. Stelter, I know you were not able to come to the work session, so I don't know how much you've looked at this, but.
I looked at it
Okay,
over the weekend.
great.
And,
Being that line Public Safety Committee member.
yeah. I don't see any problems with this. As far as I'm concerned, that it delineates the responsibilities better. And I really like that we're not gonna meet regularly. one less meeting a month for me.
I don't meet with you.
Thank you. Yes, trustee Bruner?
All right, so when I look at this, I don't understand why the Parks Committee wouldn't,
Parks or public safety? Which one are you?
Parks.
Oh, we've
Are we
got
on public safety?
We have public safety in
Oh,
front
I
of us.
just went to the next page,
Okay.
sorry.
That's okay. Let's keep our comments to this one now, and then we'll do parks last. Did anybody else have comments on the public safety committee duties? Okay.
So,
Mhm.
yes, I do have a question.
ahead.
So basically, their function is to review the off-road vehicle situation?
You know, this was just an example of one issue that needs to be addressed, and we have a potential second issue, which is parking on 100 and 200 blocks of Grand. And it says the Public Safety Committee will be convened when there is a specific issue pertaining to public safety within the town of Paonia. The committee will be requested by a vote of the Board of Trustees to do these 4 bullet items on a particular topic.
So it seems to me that it's really an ad hoc committee, issue by issue. And I think it would be better to just form an ad hoc committee when an issue arises, if that's their entire function.
I personally disagree, because I think it's as much trouble as it is to put these things together. I think it's good to have a standing committee that understands that they may be asked to do by vote to do an issue. So there's continuity on the people working together and with the staff. Are my thoughts, based on having helped compile this. Any other?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trustee Stelter, having been the public safety person.
Yeah, ever since I've been on the council, I've been on Public Safety Committee. This delineates the responsibilities really well. And I don't have a single problem with doing, wait, I'm not volunteering, but I don't see a problem with doing this with on demand with issues that are already delegated by the board. And that's what I really like. There are issues delegated by the board and they become the responsibility of the persons on the committee.
Any other comments from trustees who haven't? Okay. So the last one is the Parks Committee.
So are there
any questions to it? Sorry, Trustee Bureau, I was reading it. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
So the same question is, so there are duties beyond reviewing the Paonia motion document?
Not at this point. Other questions from any other trustees?
I missed the meeting that this was discussed. I would like to add to that, that there would be some kind of input from the Parks Committee, or the Parks Committee would be, their responsibility would be to look forward in our grant, getting grants and scheduling the improvements in the Paonia motion. Paonia motion is a broad document. It's basically an outline of what our consultants decided that we needed in town. And it's a document that we can use, but I think it could use some modification as well with citizen input. And maybe the Parks Committee could lead the charge for that.
Well, let me explain kind of what the thought was, that the Parks Committee would look at one element and then look at that with a deep dive and bring their suggestions to the trustees, because the full trustees have to deal with grants and implementation, and do we have the staff in conjunction with the town administrator? So this was strictly to have somebody responsible for opening that plan up again and saying, can we really have an ice skating rink? It's not in there, but as a idea,
I
because
would like to see the specific tasks put forth to the Parks Committee. You know, pick whatever the board decides, pick one thing. If it's the paths around the park.
oh, you mean a specific element
A
in?
specific element in there, and then we do a deep dive there. I think that's better that the board sets the priorities, and then we go from there. Rather than allow a two-person committee to just kind of scattergun approach. Because it's a big document. It takes a long time to go through.
And here's my misgiving, because it's a long document, it takes a long time to get through, the trustees will not get through telling you what the priority is. I'm sorry, I'm being perfectly honest about what it takes to do it.
If the whole board read the entire thing. Unfortunately, I've read it maybe a dozen times, and that's where it has a lot of detail, but then again, it's just this broad outline, and we need to set priorities.
Well, how about if the committee came to the trustees with the priorities they thought would be worthy of?
I could live with that.
Only because I'm afraid if we put that to the trustees,
It'll
it
take
will get,
forever.
the can will keep going down the road, which is kind of why this looked like an ideal way to see if that plan, what parts of that plan can we actually implement, and you know, what processes do we need to go through? So those are my thoughts as we discuss the redo. So I'm absolutely open to other ideas. I'm just giving you my thought process. Yeah.
There is one duty that we forgot about for this. We're currently in the middle of the safe pathways to parks. And so it was the Parks Committee that was a part of that program, and perhaps that's another as needed ad hoc duty that could be added to this committee as well.
And are you thinking as they come back in, as the people, the Ben Graves, I can't think of this group.
Nature Connection.
Are you thinking as they get more input from the folks that gave them the money to do the safe pathways, to come to us first and not give us the last minute?
Yeah.
To do a grant? Okay.
Well,
Is that what you're thinking?
Well, we're currently involved with this process. We got the grant. Now, the Parks Committee had been part of that program, looking at where these safe routes should go. And I don't think that process is done yet.
It's not finished.
So that should be that really ought to be a duty of this committee, to determine those things and then bring it back to the board for the final approval.
And do you think they were anticipating coming to the board for their next step, Ben Graves and the Nature Connection? I'm unclear if they thought they were going to come to us for their next step. Can we have an intermediate committee work on that by their expectations?
They've been working with the Parks Committee throughout the process. I think now with a trustee that is retired off the board, one trustee who's still on that, you know, would be part of that group. Should probably, you know, continue with that, and until that process is done.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. You know, what's 5.5 years on a committee? We can do this. I can do it. If you so care to.
Yeah. So
it is an important thing, and we need to get, we've not had a real handle on the parks. Parks has been the redheaded stepchild of the town. And it's one of our crown jewels that we have such good parks in our town. And I really would like to see some progress made on a lot of issues in our parks. I'm pretty passionate about it. We've got numerous 75-year-old trees that their lifespan was about 70 years. We need to start really thinking about planting trees in the city park. Silver maples are about 70 years. That's their average lifespan. They're at 75, I believe, now. So we're going to start losing them pretty fast.
Yes.
I just want to point out the planning for improvements has been stricken from
It
the
has.
role of that parks.
Yes, and I was just gonna say that is no longer the role of the Parks Committee. That would be more staff. And probably with tree board, because we do have a tree board that, we'll look at because we have the database put together by the state forester. Anyway,
And planning for improvements is really part of that budgeting process that will create a capital improvement plan. That's something that has been missing. We didn't do that this year, was a capital improvement plan for parks. We did it for streets and water and wastewater and the PD in this building here, but we didn't do one for parks. And I think part of that issue is we don't have an adopted parks master plan. That I think really in the grand scheme of things, if you're playing chess, you've got to get that done first. That's really step one to get to where we want to be with our parks.
That was the intention with the Paonian in motion. That was the intention. It was not what we got.
Right.
yeah, which is why we're kind of back to that to see what we can carve out of it. So with the discussion of the safe routes to school parks, is that something that would just be a motion to assign to the Parks Committee and not necessarily an added duty?
Correct.
Because the asterisks, no, the duty was, we were definitely honing in on the Paonian motion. Sorry, I was thinking about the public safety one. So to me, that's still an important part of the Parks Committee, but they can't do everything. So it would be kind of up to the trustees to say, is it Paonian motion or is it safe routes to parks that we would like them to work on by vote? Does that make sense? Does that seem reasonable? Trustee Bruner?
I would have a third duty. I was on the board when the parks were pulled from a contractor and put under the purview of the Public Works Department to save money. At that time, the budget for the parks was, I think, right about $65,000. And looking through the budget stuff that I could find, I think today it's closer to $250,000. And the condition of the parks is nowhere near as good. I think we should seriously consider contracting for the care of the parks. So we don't actually have do we have a turf expert on or a tree expert on the Public Works? Don't they have a lot of stuff to do besides mowing the lawn and watering?
For me to answer, this is more of a bigger question on budget and not for the Parks Committee.
Budget time.
Yeah, but I think you bring up a point that is very worthy of discussion, but I don't think it needs to be a Parks Committee issue. I think it needs to be a bigger trustee issue and a discussion with the town administrator as to what are we spending and is there a contractor that would do work for cheaper? So I would leave that as a trustee discussion because to me it's bigger than this, and we can talk more about how to deal with that during budget or how are we doing? Is our staff doing parks? And is there any reason, we would get a report from our administrator as an agenda item? Would be the best time to do that. So at this point, we're on the parks one. And if you all are comfortable with going forward with that being an established committee with looking at Paonian motion or maybe in the short term, looking at the which one has more urgency? Or do you think you're going to see more from the safe routes to parks? Okay, so that would probably take a little bit more higher priority.
Right, so safe routes to parks is actually going on right now. But it should be wrapping up pretty soon.
Like July.
Yeah, so it would almost, and they kind of work together, right? Paonian motion and the safe routes to school kind of, whatever comes out of the safe routes to school probably should also be included in our parks master plan.
Yes.
Especially if we're talking about entrances to our parks and access.
So mostly, if we have two people that go on the Parks Committee, I don't want to overload that, is what I'm saying, is if we could figure out as trustees how to prioritize the work they're going to do on their outside of meetings time.
Yeah, and these committees aren't just trustees, right? There's staff interaction as well, so.
Make sure that works.
Yeah.
Do Never mind, I think you already answered my question. So if you're all good with the 4 committees, let's just go look at the resolution that provides the authority for creating the committees and the makeup of the committees and who chooses the committees. And this is a resolution, what you see in red is to be removed or added to the resolution that was passed back in October of 23. And the first whereas is to remove streets, water, sewer, and trash. And Streets Committee was not really a ongoing committee that came out about from some issues with closure of streets. So that was really more of a short-term committee. I think you were on that, weren't you, trustee?
And flags.
And flags, and that didn't get on here, but yeah, I don't know why that was put there. So anyway, we would like to limit it to the 4 committees. And then section 1A was simply to get rid of choosing committees in January, which doesn't quite make sense when we often have new trustees in April. So it's just to make it work when trustees come on board or when we have one appointed. And the term board was left off of section 1B. And just to change the date. So, any comments on the resolution?
We do have one more change. It's the first whereas we're missing a D for and.
Oh,
So
early on. Okay. I don't see it, but I believe you.
it says and instead of and. This first line.
Okay.
All right. I think I'll highlight it. That'll work.
So I guess, if we could, maybe split this into 2 motions. One to accept the resolution and the committee duties, and the second one to figure out who's on what committee.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolutions. Doesn't have a number for 2024.
09.
01.
09.
09/2024. And I'd also like to approve the ARC committee's templates as they stand.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
That was an aye?
Yeah.
Okay, that was unanimous. All right, so, we probably, well, no, I think we did we vote on myself and trustee Schwartz being on the finance committee? I think we did.
Before.
Yeah, in the previous meeting. So now, well, and the personnel committee doesn't actually, I'm already on it based on this, and then the staff will choose the members.
Yes, I've begun the process with that for finding out who the staff wants to. So I'll bring it back to you at another meeting.
Thank you. We're off the hook for tonight on that. So let's see. Who's interested in public safety?
I would, I'll do that. I would be interested in that.
Okay,
I would as well.
okay. Can we have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept trustee Hunter and trustee Check as the public safety committee members from the board.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Cool. Okay, thank you. All right, now the parks. Who would like to be on parks?
I'll make it a career ending committee.
I'll do it.
Okay, thank
You
you.
can amend my career too. So.
What? So can we have a motion?
Somebody else make this motion.
Who volunteered? So trustee Stelter and trustee Valentine. Okay, I make a motion to appoint trustees Valentine and Stelter to the Parks Committee.
Second,
I'll second that.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. This next one, I know Sam, our town clerk, can describe it more, but we have to make some modifications in order for, I believe it's trustee Schwartz to be on the finance committee and be able to sign checks. So.
You want to hear?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
So, I believe, I wrote my statement staff report late at night, so I don't remember exactly what's in it. But, originally, whenever we got a new finance committee member, we would take the minutes to the bank, and that's when they would add the signatories. But while interim, Administrator Klusmeyer was here, we started doing a resolution of authorized signatories. And since we did that on the one, the bank would prefer that we have something just as official for the finance committee member, because they tend to sign the checks after, the day after you guys approve disbursements. And so I thought it was a good idea to have it cleaned up anyways and have it, in a more formalized thing. So we just added it into the authorized signatories resolution that you guys passed at the April 23rd meeting. So this is just adding the finance committee onto that, and just when committee members change, we'll have to update it just like we would if we had a resignation of a staff member or a board member that was on that resolution as well. It's just cleaner.
Administrator Wynn, did you have a follow?
This is an item for discussion, and we do have someone who's raised their hand for on Zoom for comment.
Okay. So if you had your hand up, are you ready to?
Yeah,
Oh,
this is Mary Backren on Box Elder. I do have some concerns about the mayor being on the finance committee because of the signatories. Usually the two board members sign checks and then the mayor acts as backup when there's needed. If the mayor is on the finance committee and one of those two members can't sign checks, who then is going to be the backup for that? So it does raise an issue. Thank you.
If you would like to answer that, Administrator Wynn.
Yeah, so we also have other signatories, so myself and Sam included. I would defer to Sam, Samira in that instance. If the other signatory couldn't get it from one of the elected officials, because I'm the one that also reviews invoices after they're put into the system for payment. So to maintain that separation, it would just make sense that our clerk could also act as a signatory in case, just in case.
And I might add that my being on the finance committee may not be a permanent thing. I think it's just a matter of, just getting some more time to get our whole finance system put together and trustees getting familiar with it too.
And I should add, so while you have been on the finance committee, this continuity I think is good because we've created some really good processes and procedures, but they're not all quite implemented yet. We're almost there, and I think that continuity is going to help until we get it ready to go in place.
Yeah, and just my institutional knowledge of the last couple of years, but that doesn't mean it's permanent.
Please wait till after this audit.
Oh, I'm not leaving yet, but I just want to say I don't have to do it for the next 4 years. It could be modified.
If I may, from what I've seen, you're really good in that role, and I appreciate you being there.
Well, thank you. Detail is my middle name. But yes.
And the resolution you guys just passed says that you guys are gonna relook at committees every April.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So unless any more discussion, Trustee Stelter? Oh, yeah. Were you ready to make a motion?
Yes.
Let me just make sure. Does any trustees have any comments? And I didn't ask for comments from the public, and I apologize for that. Any comments? Nope. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2024-08 for authorized signatories.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And let's see, I think we're done. Other than
Trustee Schwartz is.
Oh, trustee Schwartz, yes, I knew I was looking at something. So trustee Schwartz had an idea that I thought was a really nice idea, but I also thought the entire board should be aware of it. And did you all have an opportunity to read her appreciation and any comments on it, anything you'd like to adjust? Everybody a moment to get there. Any other, I have one thing that I want to bring up, but I don't need to do it if others have any comments they'd like to make on this proposal. And let me ask the public if you have any comments on her proposal.
Kathy's?
Yes.
We're dealing with that now?
Yes, so we moved on to the appreciation proposal. Hang on one second. Anybody from the public?
Just one question on that.
The one.
She says, is it one person that's presenting to the town during a meeting for 3 minutes, the appreciation comments or people that, or is it all of the trustees?
I read it that it was trustee Schwartz.
Just one trustee, so using 3 minutes of if the beginning of the meeting.
It would be, let me just look at B during the announcements.
Be during announcements, okay, so just one person.
Which is-
do the 3 minutes to just.
Well, no, she could probably take more than 3 minutes because the announcements is for the board to make announcements.
So board members can make announcements in that regard of receiving appreciation emails or notices or whatever. It just seems it's not really clear on that.
We'll discuss it and make sure it is. Thank you.
If I may, Madam Mayor, it sounds like she says using up to 3 minutes under announcements and that trustee Schwartz would volunteer to collect the information to then discuss at the beginning of meetings.
She adds too, that trustees are welcome to add theirs. However, in the interest of time, I would like to limit that to 3 minutes. I thank you. I saw you, now I see you 3 minutes.
So that would be that all the trustees would have 3 minutes at the beginning of a meeting to bring.
Sorry, sorry. Yes.
I apologize, but since it looks like this is gonna go on a little bit, do you guys
Oh.
want to extend the meeting?
Could we have a motion to extend the meeting?
Make a motion to extend the meeting 15 minutes.
Second.
Too bad.
Okay.
I move that we table this item until trustee Schwartz is back.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And then the last thing, which you all can read for yourself, is my summary. I went to the Energy and Environment Symposium, and I've just given some highlights and some statistics that I thought were pretty interesting. And I will just let you all read it for yourselves, but I wanted to let you know that I went, and here's what I learned. Okay. With that, I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.